What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Twilight Imperium Junkies podcast. Today, we have a special guest. What is up, Matt? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Henry, it's going good. Glad to be on the show.
We have you here today because we want to talk about Mahact, because we have seen you go Mahact in a couple of recent TI Junkies episodes now, with, some might say, a great amount of success.
It is a very fun faction to play, and it's got some very unique strengths and weaknesses that happens to correspond to my playstyle, and I'm happy to talk about them. They're a really fun faction.
Are you also playing them a decent amount in your other games, off camera, off the show?
Yeah, I'd say they're honestly one of my favorite factions these days. I'd say that my favorite factions are probably, and these are all like very, very different factions, but Soul, Mahact, and Extra. Those are probably my three favorites, and Mahact is just such a fun faction to play.
I want to spend more time with them, because I think I've played them once. I don't really understand them, and then I've spent most of my time in games with them just like playing a different faction and seething at everything Mahact can do.
Yeah, there definitely is kind of a little bit of that to them. They're I think what kind of makes them unique is that they have a lot of really game-breaking abilities once you get them online. But they really have, unlike like Soul gets little advantages here and there to things you're already doing, right? Their carriers are better, their infantry are better, you get an extra token, you get little things along the way to kind of help you kind of like slowly sort of snowball. Whereas with Mahact, it's kind of like you need to put a whole bunch of things into motion to get them to a point where you can really make use of their abilities, and then once you do, they can really do some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah, I totally see that. And I love the comparison to Soul as being a faction that, I mean, I guess I hear flack for them being boring. I also, like you, I love playing Soul, but you're right that it's kind of like doubling down on the things you're already normally doing in TI. Do you remember if something particular drew you to playing Mahact for the first time? Like, did you see them go nuts in the game, or maybe you just like saw the components and you were like, I'll try that out.
I remember like one specific async game where the entire table just got completely bodied by Will just doing with Mahact like what Mahact does best, just like going into places, like taking home systems, just being all over the place, and no one could do anything, and he was just sort of unstoppable then. Like granted, I mean it's Will, he'd be unstoppable with Barony, but I was like, whoa, this is a crazy faction. And then kind of a while passed, and I kept looking at Mahact. I was like, this faction looks kind of like difficult. Like, these abilities seem like they'd be a lot to manage.
Totally.
I don't know if I'm really ready for this. And then like at one point I was like, you know what? I'll try them out. And you try them out, and it's like, oh my goodness! Like there's actually, like, once you kind of sort of see how the pieces sort of fit together, like their whole kit like works together really, really well. It's kind of like they're kind of like Soul in that case, where like with Soul, like they've got better infantry and better carriers to carry them around, and other more tokens to like do things with stuff, and it's just a piece of kit that works together really, really well. All of Mahact's like abilities like work together really, 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 really well. So like once you kind of see what you need to do to kind of get them where they need to be and do that, you have like a whole suite of tools that just kind of like makes the complexity of having their commander a lot more manageable, and it makes for some very fun and some very spicy plays that you just couldn't even contemplate with any other faction.
That's cool. You start to transcend the complexity, and you see the matrix, you see the Mahact tricks. We started to touch on this, but like big picture, why should someone play Mahact? What makes them interesting or fun to play as, and what kind of player or play style do you think is going to be rewarded by their strengths as a faction?
That is a great question. I'd say that there's definitely factions that are kind of swingy and kind of move around right off the gate, like SAR and Necro, that just kind of move around. You're just sort of going by the seat of your pants, and doing all of that. There's factions that start off like really strong out of the gate, and then they kind of rely on this sort of snowball effect to really kind of build up, like Soul. Mahact is kind of like the sort of late game sniper kind of play style, where you're really trying to like build up and just sort of like invest resources into your fleet, invest in a token pool, get other players' tokens in your fleet pool, assemble this kind of cache of rocket fuel that you could just ignite all at once in round 5, and hopefully propel yourself to to a win.
We can get a little more specific now with what seem to be kind of like the headline elements of what they have going, which is being able to unlock systems, which is like probably the biggest thing that they have going for them uniquely. But then also this gaining command tokens in your fleet pool from other people, not just for the tokens, but also to get their commander abilities, which is like, sorry, Barony, but your fleet supply shenanigans are trash, and Mahact laughs at you. I guess these are kind of intricately linked, right? Because you unlock the commander by getting more tokes. How do you think about this, like, gaining fleet tokens process of sort of your maybe early into early mid game? Like, is this like a deals approach? Are you friendly about it? How do you kind of negotiate that development of the Mahact game?
I think it is kind of primarily a sort of deals sort of approach. With Mahact, you really don't get a whole lot of bonuses to combat. And so, like, really, for all intents and purposes, you're a generic faction,
right?
Until you can kind of like get all of your kit online to take advantage of the commander and take advantage of the hero and all the other like tools that you have. And so I think a lot of it is you're making deals. You're like sending in one cruiser to go after a random destroyer somewhere. You're really just trying to like sort of, as you're sort of building up your fleet supply, you're just kind of looking for little opportunities here and there where you can like give somebody a trade good or two to retreat out of here, or you see a vulnerable fighter like sitting in the system by itself and you're going after that there, and it's really kind of I think a gradual process where you're trying to do this while simultaneously trying to like build up your build up ships and materials there, and stockpile other command tokens for your own nefarious purposes.
How do people respond generally to your plays for tokens? Are you maybe throwing them a couple bucks and then they don't have a problem with it? They're like, it's just Mahact stuff. Does it salt them down?
I think a big part of TI is making deals and sort of seeing like, okay, like I need somebody else's cooperation to help me score. What can I give them in exchange that will like help there? And there's lots of other factions that need things done for them, or
right.
Need oftentimes someone will need help scoring a secret, or they'll need safe passage through a PDS field here, or they'll need like to borrow a planet there, and those kinds of things I feel like just sort of like come up naturally.
Yeah.
And I think as a part of that, just winning combats is a part of that. Is a part of those negotiations.
I think that's fair. And and I still like the kind of prevailing philosophy of like, well, they're gonna find a way to score that secret, so like, why not you be the one to help them so that you get a little something out of it too? Because if you're just kind of like, no. And I mean, same thing with the reverse. Like, Mahact is gonna get their tokens from somewhere, and if you don't negotiate with them, then they're like, all right, well then I guess I should just have the plastic to come take your token by force. And there's a sort of like mutually assured, not destruction, but just like mutually assured inconvenience if either like you're not going to work with them for what they need out of it. And I mean, this applies to every deal, I guess, not just Mahact, but like, and also for them being to stalwart against Mahact getting tokens. But then I feel like then there's this weird balance for like not players, but also like the whole table to figure out of like, Mahact does seem to be one of those factions where we have to keep track of not just their point tempo, but like their tempo for what they're going to be capable of that we're not going to be capable of in round 4 or round 5 or whenever.
Yep, and that's always hard to judge too. That's I think part of what makes playing Mahact fun, and it makes it fun to have them in the game, and it's fun to play them, is what you're really good at that not a whole lot of factions are good at is control objectives in the late game. Like, you can, like, if Shard of the Throne is somewhere, you can probably get there.
Yeah.
If you need to take a planet and somebody like pops a parlay, like, you look them in the eye, you lift the token, and you go in and you take the planet anyways. If you're holding down a planet, you've got a mech there, and you've got their command token in your fleet pool, and they're trying to like take trying to take Mechatol from you. You look them in the eye, and and you essentially kind of like do a mini ceasefire on them, and give them their token back, and they can't do anything. Some really kind of killer capabilities in the late game that are hard to account for, but at the same time, it's a big table. Everyone's doing their own thing. Like you might have these capabilities, but somebody else might be more ahead right now. Like, somebody could be playing Jolnar with a really fast tempo, or somebody could be be a Sarl, and they're another late game thing. So I think when it comes to like balancing heat and stuff, it's like you I think what sort of helps you is one, you can kind of like sort of drift behind a little bit because you can kind of rely on your ability to kind of like get places you need to be to take to like go and get shard, to go in and get control objectives. And you can also point out to your neighbors like, hey, look, like we've been chill all game. If it's you don't know what it's going to be in round 5, and maybe I can help you win slay someone who's ahead of you.
That's true. In terms of like Mahact pacing, do you have a, not necessarily explicit benchmark, but do you have like an intuitive benchmark for like your pace of gaining tokens by a certain point, or getting the commander unlocked by a certain point, or even like long term? Are you like, I want everybody's token? How do you kind of think about all of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say that you definitely want the commander unlocked before, ideally before round 4, because round 4 could be a last round in a lot of cases these days. But you want your commander unlocked. I don't think it necessarily matters too much that you have everyone's fleet token in your fleet stockpile. Like, it definitely helps, but as long as you have a good enough fleet stockpile to where you've got, you can kind of like have like a pretty big fleet. I think what you really need is both a strong fleet that's capable of actually like going out and doing what you need to do, as well as many tokens and tactics as you possibly can have. Because the commander is great, but it will burn through tokens like no tomorrow.
That's, yeah, totally. It's like seems so good, and then you're like, this is pretty expensive. Like, if you think about all the games where you haven't played Mahact and you've had token problems at some point in those games, you're like, well, if I was Mahact trying to do any of my shenanigans, I might be hosed because of how few tokens I would have had.
Yep, yeah, no, and Mahact definitely need the tokens. It's like there's no point having this great commander and all of these tools that help you get places and this great hero if you have like 1 in tactics in round 5. Like that's just a tragedy.
Kind of surprised to hear you say you want it unlocked by like round 4. Oh, that seems late, because what if stuff comes up that you need the flexibility for? Then I guess I'm understanding, okay, well, like the most important flexibility is going to be for these like 2-pointers, these control 2-pointers, this late shard that like are probably not going to be things you're going for in like round 3, for example.
Yep, exactly. I think that's the key thing with Mahact is the whole mentality that, or the way that I play the faction is I'm just stockpiling rocket fuel all game, where I'm trying to like buy a few extra tokens this round and just want to keep them for later. I'm trying to take leadership here to get a few more tokens. Like I'm passing around a little bit earlier than I might usually would because I can save a few tokens here and there. Because really what you want to do is make use of this really powerful and unique tool that you have, which is your commander, kind of all at once in this one big sprint, and get the things that you need when right when you need it, when the rest of the table like doesn't have a whole lot of tools to stop you from that.
We kind of talked about these generally, like the shard and the 2-pointer play. Do you have maybe like a specific game that you can recall and kind of share with us how that played out in a game-winning way or a game-swinging way or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the first game I played, I think it's one of the minis that's on the channel right now. My first ever game that I played with Mahact. The 2-pointer came out, and I was at 9 points, something like that, and the 2-pointer came out. The 2-pointer was not scoreable for me because it was to have a whole bunch of trade goods that I just didn't have, but Shard of the Throne was available. But the problem would have been for most factions is that Shard of the Throne was held by the player on the opposite side of the board from me. And so basically what I did, I had a crap ton of tactics tokens. I used 9 tokens, so like 27 influences worth of tokens, to gradually move a fleet of, I think it was like my flagship and like 3 or 4 dreadnoughts across the board to get to this guy's home system to like go in and take it. And that was when I immediately fell in love with Mahact, because I was like, holy like if I was playing any other faction, this would not have been possible, and this was just absolutely crazy.
That's so fire. And like putting it in terms of like I just spent 27 influence to get across the board and take shard is like so funny.
Yeah, no. After that game, I quoted the Dune line where I think the Vladimir Harkonnen is like, "You have no idea what it cost me to bring such a force to bear here. I have only one requirement: income. So squeeze."
It's a good illustration of just what you're saying. This like stockpiling jet fuel, because 27 influence is jet fuel. That is more than a 2-pointer and a 1-pointer. So I feel like those are like the were kind of like the headlining abilities. There's a couple other stuff they got going on. Let's talk about their agent, because I'm actually in an async game as Yasaro right now, and Mahact is in the game. So I kind of have had to come to these decision points about whether or not to use it. And I have felt a little bit of the paranoia about other people's value, which is not a good paranoia. I try to limit it because, again, like, you get value, they get value, everything's good. But I do struggle a little bit with like the decision making about if to unlock people, how to unlock them. I mean, if you just need the strat card and you don't have a token, it's a no-brainer. But yeah, I'm wondering how you kind of think about that agent, what its utility is, how just if it's effective for you, if it does stuff for you.
Yeah, the agent Jae Mir Kan is probably one of my favorite agents in the game. Like, it is, in my opinion, it's very, very useful, and it plays into kind of what Mahact needs from an agent. And the paranoia about value, I think, is very much there. But like to me, it's a very, very effective tool, because with Mahact, their whole big thing is using tokens to go out and do a whole bunch of actions in the late game. Well, this is basically it just lets you follow a strat card for free, so you don't have to spend a token. So this thing right here is the equivalent of like 4 or 5 tokens if you're going to follow like 4 or 5 things. That's a lot of value.
Yeah.
If you think about this, if you're using this every round, this is the same as like the soul faction ability in terms of just getting an extra token for free. The sort of deal where you are unlocking someone else's stuff, like that's definitely something to think about. And there's sort of 2 ways to approach this. I think is on the one hand, you can use it to make deals with people. You can go up to somebody who's got like a strat card you want to follow and say, hey, like, I want to follow this strategy card, and if you make it worth my while, I'll use Jae Mir Kan and unlock something of yours. And that's a tremendously valuable ability. Like, depending on that might be someone's difference between somebody scoring a point or not, and so you can oftentimes get a lot of value off of that. Like, yeah, sure, they might get a pointer, get something unlocked, but you get a tremendous amount of value from them in exchange for that. So that's a way to approach it. Another way to approach it is to just try to lift tokens that people are kind of just sort of like putting down without really much of a plan anyways. Like, a good example of this is like in a round 1. You definitely like don't want to lift someone's token in a way that helps them get to Mechatol round 1 or round 2 without a lot of compensation. But if someone's already like kind of like moved some things out, and they've got some ships, kind of like in a system adjacent to their home system that's sort of on the edge of the game board, and there's not really a reason for them to move that anyways. Right. There's not really anywhere for it to go. Like, yeah, sure, you lift that helps them in no way, shape, or form, and lets you follow something else.
Yeah, I like that round 1 strategy. And then, how about this though? Do people ever come back to you and just? I mean, does this depend on you having tokens so that you don't need the agent? Because I feel like there is some argument. I've kind of heard a similar argument for like people selling Speaker, right? Because like I think this was maybe on SCPT where they were like, maybe people shouldn't pay for Speaker because it's actually the person selling it is getting an advantage by it moving backwards, as opposed to in some rounds making yourself Speaker is kind of a death sentence. So I wonder, I know it's a little distant from this Mahact agent, but I'm wondering if like, do people ever just go, well, you have no strat tokens and you want to follow this, you just need to agent me anyway. And maybe I guess the response there is like, well, I could agent you in this useful place versus this unuseful place. I don't know if that ever happens to you. People kind of challenging the presumed value of it for them.
Yeah, there's always a tool where if you don't have any strat tokens, you can lift somebody's less useful thing versus their most useful thing. And the whole play of like, you have a strategy card that you want to follow and you have no strat tokens, and someone is like, aha, like, I've trapped you. Like, the only thing that you can lift is this one token. The only token that I have on the game board that happens to be next to Mechatol. Like, if they're able to get you into that specific situation where they're able to like figure out what strat cards you want, figure out that you have no strat tokens, and put you in that position, like they just deserve the value at that point. Like that's some very high tier play. Like that's hard to do.
I think that makes sense. It's like, yeah. That would be Galaxy Brain. Really having that happen in practice, or even consistently in practice, is probably Galaxy Brain. And I like that. They just deserve it.
Like, yeah, no. Anyone who can do that, if you can do that, you need to have a career in sales. Like, Like at that point, like you'd make $1 million easy.
Clearly I ask that because I like haven't played much Mahact, so I was just kind of theory crafting about how it might play out, and you're just kind of like, well, look, that's probably not gonna be the position. So kudos to them for getting themselves set up for that free lift.
Exactly, yeah. And in that case, if it is going to help somebody that much, I mean, you can always do the thing where you're going to the rest of the table and saying, well, I mean, I'll help them get Mechatol, and they've got the 8 if I don't get some value here. So there's always places it plays, but basically it's a very solid agent. Gives you pretty much 5 tokens for free, lets you follow 3 secondaries in round 1, which is huge, and it has a really fun interaction with construction. When you follow construction with this, you take somebody else's token off the game board, and then you use that token in the system where you place your dock. So it basically diplos them and gives you a free unlocked dock, which is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, my mind immediately just goes to like, oh, if L1 had construction for some reason, this is a perfect time for me to lay down a vulnerable dock and lock it down so they're not tempted to snipe it.
Exactly.
I know there's many applications, but my mind immediately went to that.
Exactly. The first time I did that was when Patrick was my neighbor, and he was looking to snipe one of my docks, and he was very salty that I in fact was able to use his strat card to diplo my system and then build off of the dock that I just placed.
That's beautiful. Anytime we make Patrick a little saltier, I'm on board. So I support it. Let's talk about Benediction a little bit, it's almost equally iconic to me as this commander. Mahact is just so iconic, all these things they do. I would open it just by saying it's amazing. It can be defensive, it can be a slay. It's such a flexible hero when you can contrast it to something like the Barony hero for sure. Maybe the Sardak hero is one to contrast it with, because that one is about a combat, but it's so specific in that it's ground combat, that your ships disappear, that it's your ground combat. The fact that the fact that it doesn't have to be you, it can be 2 other players. Like a lot of the Mahact kit, it's just like so wildly flexible. How do you think about Benediction and incorporating it? Do you use it every time? Also, I'm actually curious. Are there maybe times where Benediction isn't needed or isn't useful, or it seems like one that would be always useful? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I definitely agree with you 100% in that it's an extremely flexible tool. Yeah, as you said, offensively, defensively. Yeah, you can use it on your ships. You can use it on somebody else's ships. You can use it to move your ships out of a place where you've got a token. You can use it to, have somebody or move somebody else's ships out of their home system. Like, somebody you can have the biggest fleet in the game. You can have all your dreads, both War Suns, fighters for days. But Mahact can just be like, I'm just going to move all that into the Van Haug. What are you going to do? Yeah, it's an incredibly valuable tool. But I think sort of paradoxically is the value is you sort of get a lot of value by not using it. Sort of like by having it available, you're kind of making everybody sort of like play to it, right? Is people are going to be like, oh, like I can't move my big fleet over there because he's got a big fleet over there. What if he benedicts me?
Right, yeah, an extra flagship kind of situation where you want the decision making around not using it.
It's very much one of those things where you've got this, you have this hammer that you've got that you can just hit people with, and everyone knows that you've got it, and everybody knows that you get to hit somebody with the hammer at some point, and nobody wants to be on the receiving end of that hammer, and so when you actually do use it, people often breathe a big sigh of relief.
Yeah.
I think that something to be cautious of if you're playing Mahact is if you've got this, like, everybody at the table is going to have good ideas about how you should use your hammer for the benefit of the table. They should be like, oh, like, you should benedict this into that, or oh, you should do this and that, and what you should say is, yeah, I'll think about it, and politely, like, smile and nod, and just not do that. Because what you really want to do is benediction is something where I'd say you only want to use it if using it helps you win the game.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're getting rid of this huge tool, this huge like deterrent, this like massive piece of kit that can really help, and not really getting any and you're not like getting your own.
You're stooging.
Yeah, you're stooging basically. Yeah, and so if someone's like, oh, like so and so is gonna win unless you Benedict them right now, like your response should be, well, how is this my problem? How are you gonna make it worth my while to do that? You know, am I getting ceasefires? Am I getting like a support swap? Like what am I getting in order to in exchange for this? Because if you're not using this to further your own win, like you're kind of wasting it.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm sure it could be tempting if you're like, for when I go to play my future Mahact games and try to learn them, or if people out there are going to start to play their first Mahact games, I'm sure this is something they would encounter. If anyone at the table is a little more experienced, they would have tons of Benediction ideas for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I was playing Mahact one time, yeah, Speedy was full of good ideas about how I could use Benediction to, to take care of a pesky Warsun problem, and it turned out the entire time, I never did, because I was like, there's something sus here.
Yeah.
And it turns out that she had destroyed their greatest. So that's an example of like stooging, because people will be like, oh, this guy's got his Warsuns over there, like you can Benedict him into my Van Hag, like this could get it, that's 12 resources value, that's some value there.
Yeah.
And just smile and nod and be like, yeah, sure, okay. But this hero can win you the game. Like this can ensure that combats happen. Like skilled retreat doesn't save you. Like you can't retreat. PDS isn't going to save you. Like it is. Yeah, you get to make one combat happen to the death, and it's just such a spicy and fun ability.
What also comes to mind is that this is sort of like the Yin hero. This is while not as maybe flexible and surgical as the Yin hero can sometimes be, though obviously this one is overall I think better. But it's a support-proof combat. So like if maybe your support partner is the only one with their flagship out and you need destroy their greatest, this is a chance to set up for that and not worry about going down a point. And God, yeah, the Van Hague sending people into the Van Hague is just super iconic for this also. Just anyone who has too much plastic. I feel like there's so many games where I look around and I'm like, man, I could do this and this, but then this person has all that plastic there that's going to stop me from doing that. It's very appealing to either, be sending yourself where you need to go, or whoever is going to hose you, right? If I'm going to use whatever other Mahact shenanigans I have to take care of some biz around the board, it must be so satisfying to just Benedict them and knock out one of their big slave fleets or something like that.
Yep, it's definitely a tool with some very fun uses.
We started to talk about Starlancers earlier. These are like crazy to me because, I mean, first of all, it's just satisfying. It's always kind of satisfying when something is parsimonious with the rest of the kit, and the fact that you're like spending the tokens that you collected to use this ability, I just find satisfying, like design-wise. But it's funny because it's reminiscent of like Extra's Nullification Field, which is an iconic ability as well that kind of shuts people down. The Starlancer costs a fleet supply you've collected rather than strategy token. But you can also use it as many times as you can get your mechs where they need to be. I mean, assuming it's different people attacking. But also you don't have to spend money researching, into a yellow tree to get to it. I mean, I've definitely seen it. I mean, nothing is sadder than someone forgetting that Starlancers is happening. But this is something I'm excited to kind of make use of, because I do like when I'm playing Empyrean, kind of spreading the mechs out and getting to where you can nullify what people want to do, in that case action cards. But I also wonder, I guess, to get to kind of bring it back to something we talked about. You mentioned this kind of late game sniping and playing from behind a little bit. So like maybe do you still see Starlancers playing a prominent role, or do you think maybe like is it more important when you're playing from ahead, or kind of lay that out for us?
Absolutely. I'd say that they are a very important part of the kit, both from an offensive perspective if you're trying to like play from behind, and from sort of a more defensive position if you're like ahead. Because from kind of like the perspective of playing behind, what the Starlancer kind of lets you do is it gives you more freedom of action with your fleets, right? In terms of, if you have like you probably, the thing about Starlancer is you don't ever necessarily want to have to use the ability, which is like if you activate a system that has the Starlancer in it, the Starlancer can return their token from your fleet pool to end their turn. Like that's an expensive ability to use. Like you really don't want to use it, But if you're if you're in a situation where you're like, man, I've got five dreads on the board and nothing else. I need to send those dreads out to go and do something, and I need to leave my home pretty much naked. Well, if you've got a Starlancer there and you have your neighbor's tokens in your fleet supply, there's a very good chance that they will not be able to take your home, even if you leave no ships there and all you have there is your mech. So I would say that in terms of being a tool that you can use, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna bet that I can protect the system with Starlancer here and send my entire fleet to go off and do what I need to do to win. That's a huge advantage. And along the same veins of control objectives, I think one of the big problems with the control objectives is oftentimes like you take a control objective and then someone comes in and takes it from you, and then they're all of a sudden they're winning and not you. Well, this is a tool where maybe you send like one little lone carrier or cruiser or dread or somewhere to a system to lock down a tech skip. Maybe your neighbor has 2 War Suns and all their mechs in a system ready to go and take that tech skip from you. Well, if you've got their token, and they don't have a way to lift it, there's nothing they can do. You essentially lock that down. That helps secure your win. So that can be a part of protecting things that you already have and protecting recent conquests that you need to score control objectives. So I'd say that from that perspective, it synergizes really well with both strategies.
Oh man, that's so nice. I could definitely have used this trying to score in our alliance game the other day, which was the 4 units in Anomalies, Legendaries, or Mechatol came up, and oh man, Nate and I really could have used some Starlancers when trying to score that and not get slayed off of it. Definitely, I don't have a mech tier list on my brain, but it definitely is in the S tier for me, I think, overall. It's just flexible. Like you said, it locks down those 2-pointers. I'm glad you brought that up. Locks down those controls, rather. And of course, at home, it's I just thinking about Windslaying Mahact, if they are in a situation where they're playing from ahead, it's they got 1 planet in home, which is nice. They got Starlancers, which is nice. Do you think you're normally building mechs throughout the game and kind of trying to spread them out for later rounds? Is that part of your approach?
Absolutely. I think the mech is an important part of the rocket fuel, because I think you want to have at least a mech at home, at least a couple of mechs that can go with your fleet that's going to go out and take stuff. If you're lucky enough to have Mechatol, you definitely want a mech there.
Oh yeah.
Or if you have a legendary planet or something that's important, you want a mech there. So I think that getting the mechs out and having them is an important part of building up into a kind of an effective late game Mahact. Yeah, hopes in with Starlancer, that could be pretty ridiculous.
How about this promissory note, Scepter of Dominion? I think so far I've kind of approached Mahawks about it and tried to snag it, but they seem a little hesitant to sell it, especially because it could be pretty dangerous to sell it early and then someone just holds it the rest of the game. Is this something you make use of? Is this something you kind of pocket?
So as far as the Mahact promissory note goes, the Scepter of Dominion. The way that it reads is, at the start of the strategy phase, you choose a non-home system that contains your units. Each player that has a token on the Mahact player's command sheet places a token from the reinforcements in that system, then return this card to the Mahact player. So it's kind of like someone gets to do a Diplo in the strategy phase.
Yeah.
But what makes it kind of not really that useful for whoever's going to buy it is if your token is on the Mahact player's command sheet, it locks you down too. So it's kind of like a worse version of Diplo. So it's that part of it makes it really not that great. Yeah, no one's really ever interested in buying it. I think the only time I've ever given it out was when I was trying to sell anything and everything that I had to buy people's cooperation to do a very kind of sketchy Mechatol play. But yeah, I really don't think it's an important piece of the kit, and it's not something I've ever tried to sell, or that anyone's really approached me about buying in anything but the most desperate of circumstances.
Let's cover their techs. We have Genetic Recombination, a rare agenda phase tech.
Yeah, genetic recombination I think is never really that useful.
Yeah, it was. It's funny because I hadn't seen it be researched by Mahact generally, and then I was in a game where I was playing Argent and Mahact had this, and it just was used on me every time. Not only was I up first to vote, but they're just like, well, I might as well use this on Argent since they're gonna get those bonus votes for the on top of the single vote this tech makes them put down.
Maybe in like a long alliance game where somebody's playing extra, you might get, or somebody on a different alliance is playing extra, you might get this just for shits and giggles or something. But I don't know, like it's not really. I mean, I think as Mahact, you have a lot of like tech wants and tech needs, and this I think isn't something that's going to really help you win,
Yeah.
or there's not really a clear path to this helping you win in I think a lot of cases.
How about their infantry then, which are also kind of a weird one? I have seen it come into play for spend objectives, but I also don't necessarily see Mahact players get it every time because of the 2 green situation.
Yeah, so Crimson Legionnaire too. I think the best thing about this tech is you kind of get some of the benefit already on your faction sheet, like having like whenever one of your dudes dies, having them turn into a commodity and then a commodity into a trade good. Like that's not nothing. Like that's something. That's a nice little value there.
Yeah, definitely.
And then when you upgrade them, they hit a little bit better. And if you lose guys, you put them on the card. You don't even have to roll for them. They just kind of come back and get to go to your home system. So this absolutely has some value late game, and it is a way to get trade goods. Like I did play a game once where the twofer was a trade good twofer, and my strategy to score that, I shit you not, was to send 2 carriers full of infantry to a very, very heavily defended planet in the hopes that they would all die and turn into trade goods, which is the most Hawk thing to do. Like I'm just
exactly.
I'm sending you all of your deaths for my own personal benefit. Just so on brand. I love that so much.
That is really on brand, and shows the value they place on their own citizens. First of all, I think it's funny to imagine doing that and then having a bunch of infantry that die show back up on your home system, and then like using your commander just to unlock that system and send in a whole nother nother fleet full of infantry that respawned. That's very funny. But you did mention that Mahact has a lot of tech needs and wants, apart from kind of figuring out what to do with faction tech. So maybe we can talk then about the tech path a little bit and kind of how do you approach that with Mahact?
In my opinion, and I know that there's people who play this differently, but I think kind of the way that I've been playing them is I play them as kind of a Dread 2 faction, kind of with the logic being that their home system, it's only a 3 resource home planet. You may have like better forward docks, but you don't really have like a whole lot of production. But kind of with the fact that you're going to be going after other people's ships and stuff to get their tokens for your fleet pool, you're probably going to have like a fairly big fleet pool if you're playing well. And so if you're kind of like restricted on tokens, like maybe with most of the factions, maybe you go carriers, so you could have like 2 carriers take up 2 fleets. But if you're going to have like probably a pretty big fleet pool anyways as Mahact, you can having enough fleet to have all 5 of your dreadnoughts in the same system, like that should be very doable for Mahact. And you already start with a yellow tech, predictive intelligence, which is great. That lets you rearrange tokens on your command sheet. In alliance game, when you do that, lets you exchange planets with your alliance partners. So that's pretty big for like mid-round planet swaps to score points and things. And you also start with biostims, which can refresh one of your other technologies, or a tech skip planet, which is also like really important if you're in the early game and you have a tech skip nearby.
Yeah,
like definitely you want to see some more next to your home system. That's always nice.
Yeah, I have seen biostims come into play for Mahact Custodians shenanigans a lot. Just if they ever have a red skip, just sussing that out immediately to get Cruiser 2 and take Custodians, because with 5 influence at home it becomes a lot more doable. Have you dabbled in the Cruiser 2 Mahact life?
I have, but only in like a longer like 14-point alliance game. I think that with Mahact, if you're playing a 10-point game, if you have a red skip nearby, you definitely want to think about if you can make use of Cruiser 2, because that is going to put you another tech on your tech path, and that's getting tech is already kind of dicey in TI as it is. So you gotta like sort of like think about like, can you get the point now? Is that going to be worth?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say if you do have a red tech skip, that's something to think about. If you don't have a red tech skip, that's maybe something that I wouldn't necessarily think about quite as much the way that I play Mahact.
Yeah, maybe a little out of the way.
Yeah, because I think the path that I usually go down is either dark energy tap or anti-mass. Usually DET unless there's like asteroids in the way, or I need to like get into an asteroid field to score an objective that's out or something. So usually DET, and then Gravity Drive, one of the best techs in the game. And then after that, usually Dread 2, and then you got to make the choice between Fleet Logistics and Sling Relay, which are both really good techs.
Yeah.
With Sling Relay, like it's even more tempting because you start with Biostim, so you can like you already have Biostims right out of the gates. So you already get 2 stalls out of it, which is great, and you get to build unlock ships. You don't have to like use the token to unlock. So that's a really powerful tech, and then of course you have Fleet Logistics, which is also like the tech that all the time you never use it, but when you do use it, it wins you the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to note that when you're using the Mahact Commander, it automatically ends your turn, so you can't unlock and then do an action with that fleet in the same turn if you have Fleet Logistics. So that is a restriction you need to think about. But there is no restrictions on Fleet Logistics and Benediction, so you can absolutely Benedict somebody's defensive fleet out of their home system, go in and take their home system with like 1 cruiser and a mech, and then when they try to come back in, just Starlancer them and just like pop them the raspberry as you watch all of their war suns and dreadnoughts and defensive screens and all that just look as you like prance around on their home system, and just kind of like you're doing like whatever the mech equivalent of like donuts is in the parking lot.
I feel like Mahact, you don't even need a metaphor. I bet they literally do donuts in the parking lot. I bet their like capes are billowing in the breeze as they like drive a convertible around the damn Denny's parking lot.
Oh yeah, no, it's a horrible sight to see. Yep. So, and then the last tech you want is Lightwave, and Lightwave is important because that lets you move through other people's ships as you're moving your big fleet around. So it's just kind of like less tokens you have to spend.
Yeah.
To get where you need to go.
Do you think in most games you manage to get to the Lightwave? Can you make it work without Lightwave? Because let's see, if we start with, let's just do the math. Let's see. So if you start with Biosims and Predictive, and then you're going 1 blue, 2 blue, 3 blue, 4 blue. So like, are you like counting on Lightwave? Are you counting on grabbing tech and double teching during the game? Are you always going to get that deep in the tree?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because kind of to get there, let's say, as you say, you need like the at least 3 blue techs. You're probably going to want to get Dread 2 along the way, so that's 4, and then Lightwave makes 5. Like 5 techs I feel like is sort of realistic, especially if you can like grab technology at some point. That being said, I don't always get Lightwave. Like sometimes you're just playing and like nobody takes tech for like 2 rounds in a row, and you're like, well, I guess we're just not doing this.
Yeah. Or you get sidetracked because you have to do upgrades or 2 and 2 color or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. And so I think that whenever I sit down to play Mahact, I think my goal is to get to a case where I've got Dread 2 and I've got Lightwave, but we don't necessarily always get there. I'd say maybe like half the time or so.
A lot of factions are trying to do and won't always be able to do, but yeah, I was curious. I think the last Mahact thing we haven't really touched on is the flagship, which maybe you can give us your thoughts on if it's something you build. I mean, that +2 can be very scary the first time you encounter Mahact if it's the flagship. But it also seems like maybe sometimes by the time you would build it, if there's not an objective out, you might not necessarily be running into the people that'll give you the bonus, and maybe Dread 2s are better bang for your buck. Where do you land on that?
Yes, I mean the flagship it's pretty generic. When the only real ability that it gets is that if you don't have your opponent's command token in your fleet pool, you get an additional +2 to the results of this unit's combat rolls. So, against somebody whose token you don't have, it's basically like 2/3 of a War Sun for 2/3 of the price.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. But then once you have the token, it just sort of acts like your standard 8 cost, 2 and a 5 flagship.
Mm-hmm.
With capacity 3. So I'd say it's worth building in that it hits well. You can carry 3 things. You can carry like 3 mechs or so. What I'll often do with my kind of like Mahact builds is I will I'll build this ship because it's like fleet pool efficient, and it can carry like 3 mechs or so, and that'll I'll have that and like a few dreads or carrying some fighters, and that'll be like a key part of the fleet that's gonna kind of go out and try to win me the game. So I think it is worth building. It's not really like that special or anything. It's not like the extra flagship or the Yin flagship that really kind of like warped the whole field around it.
Yeah.
But it's solid, and I think it's worth building.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. We outlined all this stuff from the Mahact perspective. So I think maybe the last thing I want to cover is if the rest of the table is sitting here and kind of looking at Mahact and concerned about the Mahact momentum, what do you think they might need to do to hamstring Mahact a little bit, slow them down, make things more difficult? And kind of tying into this, I kind of half jokingly, half seriously always mention when people are like, we have to just destroy Winnu right out the gate. I often will have the same feeling about Mahact and like be kind of confused why there's not a similar like meta attitude towards hamstringing Mahact from round one, just because they are. I mean, Winnu is like kind of a more flamboyant display of late game swinging with their hero, but I kind of feel like Mahact is in the same category. So yeah, I guess that's like a two-parter of like, do you think Mahact needs to have more inherent heat? I know you have an interest in playing Mahact, so maybe you'll say no. But but also like how do you think maybe a table should approach managing Mahact as they seem to be gathering moss as they roll down the hill?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, in light of the fact that I really enjoy playing Mahact and like to keep playing them with hopefully good results, I'd say that the best thing the table can do is take the advice of the Mahact's faction sheet and kneel. That's what you can do. Is you can kneel, but I think kind of more serious, or kind of like from a more like is Mahact something you need to worry about? I think it's very kind of dependent on how the objectives play out and who's playing them and kind of what's going on in the early game. Because it's like like Mahact is really only dangerous to the table if there's control objectives that they can get, or they can get on Mechatol with like some mechs and things of that nature, and just like hold it down for everyone. Things that generally like make like other factions like pretty dangerous, as they kind of already are. So I think that they are kind of like late game swingy, but it's sort of like not the same as Winnu, where they just get to like do 8 again. They do you do kind of have to have the right objectives and the right things to come out to make them a really kind of like fearsome sort of like late game thing. As far as how do you slow them down or stop them, I think it's sort of the same as with pretty much any faction. Is you kind of like bully them. You kind of like you don't make deals with them. You just kind of generally try to like get in their way. Yeah. I think as with any faction, like starving them out of like leadership, I think really hurts. Not letting them build up tokens, not letting them build up a fleet, like keeping that pressure on. Trying to stop them from unlocking their commander is going to be really hard, but you don't really necessarily care about that if they're already like if Mahact is in like the end game and they've got like two tokens in tactics going into round 5, like they're really like not a factor. Like their commander like might as well not even be unlocked.
So I guess that actually plays into what I was kind of going to follow up with, which is like if you look over at Mahact, I guess that's like what's going to be a telltale sign they're someone to worry about or not. And yeah, if they have 2 tokens in tactic versus like 8, then that's going to be a pretty dramatic demonstration of if you need to be worrying.
Yeah. If they have like a good supply of tokens and they have like a big enough fleet that they can actually do something with those, then they're going to be a factor. Otherwise, they're going to probably not be as much of a factor. But you can probably, like I think as I was saying earlier, you can kind of like try to have them like use Benediction or use some of their other tools in ways that can help you. Because I think it's pretty much either like they've been able to kind of accumulate their stockpile of rocket fuel all game. And they are like kind of locked and loaded and like ready to like go and do a whole bunch of stuff at the end of the game, or they just don't have that rocket fuel stockpile and they're basically a big fancy rocket with no fuel to go anywhere.
I feel like I've found that because they have this, if they have this extra juice in the last round, their initiative can actually be kind of deceptive because they just in general are able to on average slay more players ahead of them than the average faction. So I think just like thinking about looking up and seeing that Mahact wins on like the 5 or something, is maybe not as comforting as seeing that Extra won't win until the 5.
Yep, that is I think a big part of Mahact, and I think I think is sort of part of how I think I play them is. You want to be in that position where, like, yeah, you win on the 5, but you got the gas in the tank to go and slay, like, 1 and 2 and 3, and nobody took 4. Like that I think is what you want to do with Mahact.
Yeah.
Is be in that situation. And I think kind of coming back to why more people don't gang up on Mahact earlier is, I think when you're sort of banking on sort of a late game swing like that, you don't have to be like ahead earlier, and you can definitely do things like say, oh, like, yeah, well, I'm Mahact, like I might be a threat, 3 rounds later if you get tempo and stuff. But hey, look at Nalu who just took Mechatol. Like look at Joel Nar who's popping off with a fortified home system. Like look at Winu,
Yeah.
who's going to take Mechatol or something like that. So I think like those elements of the game sort of help you keep kind of a lower profile, and that's also kind of one of the reasons why a table looking at Mahact in the earlier game, wouldn't necessarily see him as sort of the same sort of threat as like a Winu or somebody else.
That makes sense. I mean, that's always the tried and true approach. Hey, yeah, maybe I'm doing okay now, but look at that guy over there. There, you got to deal with them. You got to deal with them. Don't worry about me gaining momentum.
Exactly. Like, yeah, like basically. Yeah. I mean, you want to play the Mahact like the way they play the Galaxy in the lore is you basically try to like set, you just sort of like set everybody against each other, like make them all fight for your entertainment, and then when the when round 5 comes out, you just lop off some heads and take the take the prize.
We hit on so much good stuff. Do you have any last words on the Mahact? Any last shout outs to the Mahacts?
Yeah, so I guess kind of a special case for Mahact in Alliance games. I think kind of per the rules of the Alliance, you get each other's commanders, right? And I think Mahact is one exception to that, where whoever is Mahact's partner does not get their commander. Instead, they get a nice little card that says, you get the privilege of giving Mahact one of your command tokens in exchange for absolutely nothing. so that I think is kind of like on the surface makes him kind of a bad alliance partner. But I'll say for those kinds of games, like, don't sleep on the fact that you can use the agent Jae Mir Kan on your alliance partner, because that is extremely powerful. That's something that I used in my last alliance game to great effect, because my partner was Necro. They've got a kind of a rough 2 infantry start,
right?
And that alone, like my partner, I think he took Diplo, and that alone just let us essentially fix Necro's round 1, and set them up to really kind of like get that ball rolling early. So I'd say like, if you're looking for an alliance partner and Mahact is coming back and saying, hey, how about instead of like being partners, you just kind of like stooge for me. Like there are benefits to stooging for Mahact.
Yeah.
There are benefits.
That agent in Alliance just has so many disgusting applications. I think about like Nalu. I mean, just anyone taking Warfare and then getting the Mahact agent, like all that stuff is definitely nothing to sleep on. Matt, thank you for joining me. I have so much more Mahact knowledge and philosophy now than I did at the beginning of this, and I am I gotta try him some more. I gotta get some Mahact teams in. I'm inspired, and it also really the big thing that I love is that I feel like there's so many factions that just don't have this level of agency, even though they have a lot of strengths. Like I just feel like Mahact can offer you a certain kind of like just control over the things you're doing and the things that are happening in a way that is really appealing.
Yeah, no, it really is, and their whole kit, it's their entire kit is just centered around a token economy, and it all kind of like works together pretty well. Like once you kind of like sort of see how that all works, and you play them a couple of times, and you just sort of you just sort of get used to like the need to build things up and what you can do. Like, oh wow, you can make some really fun moves, and you really get to have a whole different perspective on what you can do in the game and the kind of plays you can make to spice things up and salt people down and take objectives and make plays you just wouldn't be able to do with pretty much any other faction.
Well, thank you for coming on, and hopefully we'll have you back soon for more TI chats.
Yeah, sounds good. You take it easy.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Twilight Imperium Junkies podcast.
If you like what we do and want to support the show, check out our Patreon, where amongst other things, you can vote on topics for future episodes.
Keep up with the TI Junkies series by subscribing on YouTube.
Until next time, keep stooging, or maybe don't.
Unless you're my stooge.